She said it with a smile. "We're done with you." Like I was the one who failed them. But the next day I found something, a signature from years ago. Mine. And suddenly their precious retirement was hanging by a thread, with me holding the scissors. While I skipped meals to keep my lights on, they were living off my paperwork. Art, wine, spa days, all approved under my name. They cut me out of the family. But forgot I held the key to their fortune. I didn't break. I recalculated. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Camille Donahue, and I'm 35 years old. I spend my days in a third-floor walk-up, designing logos on a laptop with a cracked corner, while creditors' calls light up my phone. My parents, Virginia and Russell Donahue, raised me to be their perfect corporate daughter. But when I left my toxic marriage last year, they cut me out of their carefully curated life. My father's jaw tightened as he told me I was throwing away everything they'd built. My mother's manicured fingers deleted my number right there at their mahogany dining table. What they don't remember is that same table where, years ago, I helped them set up their precious family trust, the one that still has my name on every legal document. But let me start from the beginning. I'd spent 3 hours crafting the perfect email, explaining why I couldn't move back home after the divorce. My hands trembled as I hit send. You know that moment when you're bracing for impact but still hoping maybe, just maybe, things will be different this time? Yeah, I should have known better. Their response came exactly 8 minutes later. One text. "We're done with you." 5 words, no punctuation, not even from separate phones, just my mother's number, probably with my father standing over her shoulder as she typed. The same parents who'd arranged every minute of my childhood, from violin lessons to SAT prep, couldn't be bothered with complete sentences to cut me out of their lives. My candles had burned down to stubs that night, wax pooling on the windowsill of my new apartment. The February wind rattled the loose pane, and I pulled my sweater tighter, remembering all the other times I'd disappointed them. The B+ in advanced chemistry. The wrong college major until I switched to business. The time I wore flats instead of heels to my cousin's wedding. Each transgression earned me days of subtle jabs and icy silences until I fell back in line. "A Donahue never settles for second best," my mother used to say, adjusting my posture at the dinner table. "We lead, we achieve, we succeed." What she meant was, we control, we judge, we suffocate. I stared at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking on my half-finished portfolio website. Starting over at 35 wasn't part of their master plan for me. Neither was divorce, or freelancing, or this shabby one-bedroom with its temperamental radiator. But here I was, designing logos past midnight for clients who might or might not pay on time. The first few weeks were a blur of coffee and convenience store dinners. I took every gig I could find: social media graphics, wedding invitations, even a menu for a food truck. My phone became a minefield of past due notices and recruitment calls for jobs I couldn't take because they required reliable transportation. I'd left my car behind when I left my marriage. Another failure in my parents' eyes. But slowly, almost secretly, something shifted. Without their voices in my head questioning every decision, I started trusting my instincts. My designs got bolder. Clients started referring their friends. I learned which grocery store marked down their prepared foods at 8 p.m., and which coffee shop would let me work there all day if I bought 2 lattes instead of 1. "You're good at this," a client told me after I delivered her boutique's new branding package. Like, really good. I almost cried right there in the cafe. When was the last time someone had praised me without adding a but or if only? The irony wasn't lost on me. I was finally becoming the successful, independent woman my parents always claimed they wanted me to be, and they weren't speaking to me. No congratulatory calls, no proud Facebook posts, no holiday dinner invitations, just silence. Then came that night in late March. I was up late again, racing a deadline, when my phone lit up. The name on the screen made my stomach lurch. Bradford and Associates, my parents' accounting firm, the same one that had handled their finances and that family trust for years. My finger hovered over the decline button. I'd deleted their contact info, blocked their numbers, even unfollowed their country club's Instagram account. I was done being the good daughter who jumped every time they called. But something made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that stubborn part of me that still wanted answers. Or maybe it was the memory of sitting at that mahogany table years ago, signing papers I barely understood while my mother assured me it was just practice for my future in finance. The phone kept ringing, its glow casting shadows on my wall. What would you do? Ignore it and keep moving forward? Or answer and risk getting pulled back into their orbit? I took a deep breath and I picked up on the fourth ring. Hello? Ms. Donahue, glad I caught you. Listen, we've got some discrepancies in the quarterly reports that need your attention. Martin Bradford's voice was exactly as I remembered it. Clipped, efficient, wrapped in expensive cologne and privilege. My mouth went dry. Oh? The transfer schedules aren't matching our records. I've got 3 separate deposits marked for the Meridian account, but they're not showing up in the main ledger. Since you're handling the trust distributions, I figured you'd want to sort this out before the next statement goes out. Wait, what? The trust distributions? I kept my voice neutral, even as my pulse quickened. Yes, the family trust you've been managing. Your parents mentioned you were working remotely now, but the authorization protocols haven't changed. I'm looking at the paperwork from 3 years ago with your signature right here. 3 years ago. Back when I was still the perfect daughter, learning the family business, nodding along as mother guided my hand through document after document. Just practice, she'd said. Every Donahue needs to understand wealth management. I gripped my phone tighter. Could you refresh my memory on those deposits? Of course. Papers shuffled. We've got monthly transfers of $12,000 each going to the Meridian Resort Holdings. That's the beach house maintenance, I believe. Another $8,000 to Continental Collections for your mother's art acquisitions, and various personal expenditures ranging from $3,000 to $5,000. Standard stuff. Standard. Right. Because dropping the equivalent of my monthly income on art was totally normal. The thing is, Bradford continued, these weren't properly logged in the distribution schedule. Normally you're so meticulous with the documentation. Are you using the new software platform? I can have my assistant walk you through it. My free hand found my laptop, fingers moving on autopilot. Somewhere in my cloud storage, buried under client files and divorce papers, was a folder labeled Family Finance Training 2020. I'd kept it out of habit, or maybe spite, a digital reminder of all the hoops I'd jumped through trying to earn their approval. Actually, I said, could you email me the current trust summary? Just so I can cross-reference everything? Already done. Sent it right before I called. Let me know if you need anything else. The call ended. I sat there staring at my inbox as Bradford's email loaded. There it was, dozens of pages of financial records. My hands trembled as I opened my old files, comparing dates, signatures, account numbers. Holy shit. The trust I'd helped set up, the one I'd signed as a learning exercise, was real, and active, and legally binding. My name wasn't just on it. I was the primary trustee. All those papers Mother had me sign, they weren't practice. They were actual legal documents giving me control over their precious family fortune. Remember those trust fund kids in college who never checked their account balances? That was my parents now, burning through money they thought was safely under their control. Except it wasn't. Every penny they spent had to go through channels I'd established back when I was still playing the role of dutiful daughter. The room spun slightly as I scrolled through transaction after transaction. The country club dues, Mother's weekly spa treatments, Dad's vintage wine subscriptions. Their whole carefully curated lifestyle balanced on financial structures I'd created, and they had no idea. A notification popped up on my cracked phone screen. Another overdue bill reminder. The irony hit like a slap. Here I was, scraping by on ramen and clearance rack clothes, while they lived off my paperwork, probably congratulating themselves on cutting off their irresponsible daughter. I closed my laptop slowly, methodically, like handling a live explosive. The power humming beneath my fingers wasn't just numbers on a screen, it was leverage, control. Everything they'd used against me for years, wrapped up in legal terminology and account passwords that they'd never bothered to change. My hands stopped shaking. In their rush to shape me into their perfect financial protege, they'd handed me the keys to their kingdom. And now? Now I knew exactly what I was holding. I didn't mean to start stalking my parents on social media. But after that call from Bradford, my fingers seemed to develop a mind of its own, tapping their names into search bars during my late-night scrolling sessions. The changes were subtle at first. Mother's Instagram showed her wearing the same Hermes scarf 3 events in a row. Unheard of for a woman who'd once lectured me about outfit repeating at family functions. Dad's golf buddies posted their usual Saturday morning group photos, but his usual spot in the country club's mahogany-paneled dining room sat conspicuously empty. Remember those nature documentaries where you watch a mighty tree slowly topple? That's what this felt like. Every scroll revealed another crack in their perfect facade. Did you hear about Virginia? My old neighbor Carol messaged me one Tuesday morning. She had to cancel the annual garden party, claimed it was because of renovations, but Diane at the florist said their payment didn't clear. I stared at those words. Payment didn't clear, until they blurred. The garden party had been Mother's crown jewel, her chance to parade her perfectly manicured life before the town's social circle. She'd rather die than cancel it. More messages trickled in. A bounce check at the wine club, another at their favorite restaurant. The carefully curated image of the untouchable Donahues was developing hairline fractures. I kept working, designing logos and websites for clients who actually paid their bills. But every notification ping made my heart skip, wondering if it was another piece of their crumbling puzzle. Then came the email. Subject: Your handiwork. From Virginia Donahue. Time: 11:42 p.m. I hope you're satisfied with what you've done. Your father and I have always known you were unstable, but this level of vindictiveness confirms everything. You've ruined us. If you think there won't be consequences for this sabotage, you're even more naive than we thought. We raised you better than this spiteful behavior. My hands didn't shake this time. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like the eye of a storm. Ruined them? I hadn't touched a single account, hadn't moved a single dollar. Their lifestyle was imploding under its own weight, and somehow, I was their convenient villain, just like always. The familiarity of it hit me then, sharp as wintergreen on my tongue. The taste of the mints Mother always kept in her purse, the ones she'd offer whenever I embarrassed her. Every failure, every deviation from their script had been met with the same response: blame, shame, and the implicit threat of consequences. I opened my laptop and pulled up the trust documents. The late-night glow of my screen cast shadows across my small apartment, so different from the gleaming marble counters and crystal chandeliers I'd grown up under. In the quiet, I could almost hear Mother's voice from years ago. Pay attention, darling. This is how we protect our legacy. Their legacy, built on appearances, maintained through control, and now slipping through their manicured fingers. My cursor hovered over the distribution schedules, the investment portfolios, the carefully structured hierarchy of accounts that they'd never bothered to understand. All those hours of training had given me more than just practice. They'd given me a blueprint of their entire financial kingdom. You've ruined us, Mother had written. But I hadn't. Not yet. The truth was, I'd been silent, passive, watching from the sidelines as their own choices caught up with them. Just like they'd watched me struggle after cutting me off, probably assuming I'd come crawling back. But I hadn't crawled. I'd survived. Built something real, something earned, while they kept playing pretend with money they couldn't access without my signature, a detail they'd conveniently forgotten. I touched my screen where my name appeared on the trust documents, right above the title, Primary Trustee. My whisper barely disturbed the midnight air. They'll feel what I felt. I opened my laptop and started digging through old folders, the ones I'd archived but never deleted. You know that feeling when you're searching for something specific, and suddenly hours of your life vanish into the digital void? This was different. Every click felt deliberate, each folder a step closer to validation. Financial Records 2019. Click. Trust Documentation. Click. Family Asset Management. Click. There it was. The trust document, pristine as the day it was signed, with my signature clear as crystal at the bottom. Primary Trustee, Camille Donahue. Not secondary. Not co-trustee. Primary. I remembered that day with the sharp clarity of a paper cut. Mother had worn her cream Chanel suit, the one reserved for teaching moments. She'd positioned herself behind my shoulder at the mahogany desk in Dad's study, her perfume, fracas, always fracas, making my head swim. This is how responsible people manage wealth, darling, she'd said, tapping her French manicured nail on the signature line. Consider it practice for your future. Practice. Right. More like insurance that they'd have someone to blame if anything went wrong. My hands moved automatically to another folder. Personal communications. Years of texts and emails I'd saved out of habit, or maybe instinct. The timestamps marched backward like breadcrumbs, leading to every slight, every dismissal. From Mother 3 years ago. If you had any sense of family obligation, you'd stop this freelance nonsense and return to a proper career. From Dad, after I refused to move back home. Your mother's right. You're throwing away everything we built for you. This artistic phase needs to end. Then I found it, a voice memo I'd forgotten about. My finger hovered over the play button. Did I really want to hear this? Yes. Yes, I did. I don't know what we're going to do with her, Russell. Mother's voice slightly slurred from too many afternoon G&Ts. An unstable brat with zero future, that's what we've got. All that money spent on her education, wasted. At least we still control the important assets. I slammed the laptop shut, but opened it again immediately. No, I needed to see everything, save everything. Each cruel word, every dismissive text, they were arrows in my quiver now. The irony hit me like a shot of the cheap tequila I'd survived on after my divorce. They thought they controlled the assets, but their practice lesson had backfired. Every document confirmed it. Without my signature, without my approval, their access to the trust was about as useful as a designer handbag in a hurricane. My phone sat on the desk, Joyce's number on speed dial. Joyce, my post-divorce lifeline, the woman who'd helped me understand that starting over wasn't the same as giving up. She'd answer. I knew she would. She always did. 3 rings. Camille? Her voice carried that familiar mix of concern and steel. It's late, honey. What's wrong? I need to ask you something. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Almost too calm. Remember when you helped me understand my divorce paperwork? Of course. That was quite a mess we untangled. I've found another mess. I pulled up the trust document again, but this time I think I'm holding all the strings. The silence on her end felt knowing, patient. Joyce had been an accountant before becoming a mentor to women in transition. She'd understand the implications. Tell me, she said simply. I explained everything, the trust, the signatures, the legal framework that my parents had never bothered to understand. With each detail, my confidence grew. So here's my question, I said finally, my finger tracing my name on the screen. What happens if I never sign another release again? The pause that followed wasn't hesitation. It was appreciation. I could almost see Joyce's slight smile, the one she wore when her protégés finally found their footing. That, she said carefully, depends entirely on what you want to happen. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. I knew what it was before I opened it. The envelope had that particular weight of legal threats, that crisp self-importance of people who think money can buy anything, including their daughter's submission. My hands didn't shake as I sliced it open. Funny how steady you can be when you're ready for the blow. Notice of contest, trust, ownership, and control. The letterhead belonged to Whitman and Associates, my parents' longtime lawyers. Of course they'd gone to Richard Whitman. He'd been drinking scotch with my father at the country club for 20 years. Remember those awful dinner parties Mother used to throw? The ones where Richard would pat my head and call me little corporate princess? I'd smile and nod while he mansplained investment strategies I'd already mastered. Now here he was, trying to mansplain my own trust to me. I spread the papers across my kitchen counter, the same counter where I'd been cutting coupons just 6 months ago. The legal language was designed to intimidate. Immediate cessation of control, preliminary injunction, breach of fiduciary duty. They were painting me as an unstable element, a threat to the family's financial security. My phone buzzed. Joyce. They filed, I said, not bothering with hello. I know. Her voice had that steady calm I'd come to rely on. Are you sitting down? Standing. Reading their masterpiece of creative fiction? Well, sit down because I've got someone you need to talk to. Remember my friend Claire from the Women's Business Network? I did. Claire Morgan, razor-sharp mind behind one of the city's top boutique law firms. She'd given a talk about financial independence that had half the room taking notes and the other half trying not to cry. She specializes in trust law, Joyce continued, and she's got a very interesting take on your situation. 20 minutes later, I was on a 3-way call that changed everything. The beauty of trust law, Claire explained, her voice carrying the same energy as a chess master seeing 3 moves ahead, is that it's built on procedure. Every request for information must be honored, every document must be verified, every claim must be substantiated. And that takes time, Joyce added. Exactly. I could hear Claire shuffling papers. Your parents' lawyers will push for speed, claiming urgency. But you, as trustee, have the right, no, the obligation, to ensure everything is properly reviewed. My eyes went to the trust documents spread across my counter. How long could that take? A thorough audit? Months. Especially if we find discrepancies that require additional investigation. I felt something unfamiliar in my chest. Not anxiety, not fear, but a calm sort of power. And during those months, nothing changes. You retain full control pending resolution. After the call, I dove into my files with new purpose. Every transaction, every transfer, every casual raid on the trust. I documented them all. But it was while cross-referencing their property holdings that I found it. The mortgage statement for their beloved beach house, the one mother showcased in her Christmas cards. The numbers jumped out like neon signs, payment amounts, interest rates, and there, in stark black and white, renewal date. 3 months away. Their adjustable rate was about to reset, sky high in this market, and without access to the trust. I grabbed my calendar, the nice one I'd treated myself to when I landed my first major design client. Red pen, circle the date, 1 month after their mortgage reset, the month their payment would double, the same calendar where I'd marked their social events, the garden club luncheon, mother chaired, dad's golf tournament, the summer charity gala where they'd have to explain why they weren't donating their usual 5-figure check. My phone buzzed again. Another email from their lawyers. More demands, more threats. But they didn't know what I knew. They were playing checkers while I was counting cards. I opened my laptop and started a new spreadsheet. Timeline in column A. Legal delays in column B. And there in column C, highlighted in red, beach house default window. Joyce's words from months ago echoed in my head. The best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about choosing when to play your cards. I was done being the daughter who folded. It was time to show them exactly what their practice lesson had taught me. I settled into a routine of calculated precision. Every morning, I'd check my inbox for the latest demands from their lawyers, then carefully craft responses that were both legally sound and masterfully slow. We'll need to verify these transactions. Please provide supporting documentation. This requires thorough review. Claire had taught me well. Each delay was legitimate, each request reasonable. I wasn't being difficult, I was being diligent. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mother had always preached attention to detail, hadn't she? You're playing a dangerous game, Joyce warned over coffee one morning. The autumn sun caught the steam rising from her cup, reminding me of countless strategy sessions in her cozy kitchen. They could escalate? Let them. I pulled out my phone, showing her my latest documentation. A Facebook post where Mother complained about ungrateful children who abuse their positions. The comment thread was particularly telling. Hints about borrowed money, canceled club memberships. I'm tracking everything, I explained. Every social media rant, every whispered rumor about them asking friends for loans. Did you know Mrs. Henderson at the garden club turned them down for a temporary bridge loan last week? Joyce's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? Because Mrs. Henderson's daughter Katie works at my regular coffee shop. The gossip network they built is working against them now. I couldn't help but smile. Mother always said information is power. Days blurred together in a symphony of paperwork and precise timing. Their lawyers would file urgent motions. I'd respond with meticulously researched queries that each bought us another week or two. The mortgage clock kept ticking. One Tuesday morning, my phone lit up with a text from Katie. Just heard your mom tried to pay her salon bill with a check. It bounced. She left without a blowout. I saved the text in my documentation folder. Mother without her weekly blowout. Now that was karma. But it was the following week when everything crystallized. I sat in my car, parked across from their beach house, the crown jewel of their carefully curated life. The realtor looked uncomfortable as she hammered the foreclosure sign into the manicured lawn. Probably one of Mother's social circle, forced to do the unthinkable. My chest tightened as I watched. Not from guilt. I'd expected guilt, had braced for it. No, this feeling was different. Lighter. Like setting down a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it was there. You need to see this, I texted Joyce, sending a photo of the sign. Her response was quick. Are you okay? Was I? I looked at the house again. How many summers had I spent there, trying to be perfect? How many lectures about maintaining appearances had I endured on that wraparound porch? I'm better than okay, I typed back. I'm free. That evening, I reviewed my documentation files. Folders upon folders of evidence, their social media meltdowns, the bounced checks, the desperate attempts to maintain their facade. The latest addition was a photo from their country club's newsletter. They'd been removed from the board of directors due to financial irregularities. Joyce called just as I was closing my laptop. The foreclosure notice is public record now, she said. They can't hide it? I know. I curled up in my reading chair, a garage sale find that felt more like home than any of their expensive furniture ever had. Their lawyer sent another threat today, said they'll expose my vindictive behavior. And I sent back copies of every nasty text they've ever sent me, plus documentation of how they've mismanaged the trust. Asked if they really want that in public records. Joyce's laugh was warm. Look at you, all strategic. I learned from the best. I glanced at my calendar, where the next phase was already mapped out. Besides, this isn't vindictive. This is just business. Their favorite word, Joyce noted. Exactly. They taught me well, maybe too well. I looked out my window at the setting sun. They left me to sink, Joyce. Never thought I'd learn to swim instead. The next morning, another email arrived from their lawyers. More threats, more demands. I archived it with the others and sent my standard response. All inquiries are being reviewed in accordance with trust procedures. Then I drove past the beach house again. The foreclosure sign caught the morning light, as bright and clean as my conscience. The whispers started small but spread fast, like everything else in our gossipy suburb. First came the Mercedes. Katie texted me a photo one morning, a tow truck outside my parents' house, hauling away Dad's precious silver status symbol. He'd named that car the Chairman, if you can believe it. Used to joke that it had better posture than most of his board members. Your father was at the dealership yesterday, Katie wrote. Lots of hand-waving and raised voices. Security got involved. I saved the text in my evidence folder without responding. Some victories don't need commentary. Mother's social fall was slower but deeper. Mrs. Henderson, she of the rejected loan request, let it slip during a nail appointment that the country club had regrettably suspended certain memberships due to account irregularities. Within days, Mother's login to the club's booking system was quietly deactivated. No more spa afternoons, no more hosting her precious committee meetings in the private dining room. You know what's funny about watching your parents' carefully constructed social facade crumble? The silence. The way their usual spots in group photos just emptied. Their names vanished from charity gala committees. The bridge club started meeting on a different day. Somehow always when Mother wasn't available. They're not even being subtle about it, Joyce remarked over coffee one morning. Virginia's birthday came and went without a single social media mention. Last year, there were 3 separate luncheons. I stirred my latte, remembering elaborate parties where every detail had to be magazine-worthy. She always said presentation is everything. Guess the universe was listening. But I didn't let myself dwell on their undoing. Instead, I channeled that energy into something real. My client list was growing. People who appreciated clean lines and honest materials, who wanted homes that felt lived in rather than shown off. Every project felt like unwinding another knot from my past. Late one night, sketching designs for a young family's first home, I realized something. I wasn't just working, I was building. Each satisfied client, each referral, each positive review, they were becoming foundation stones for something bigger. Joyce dropped by my apartment the next morning, supposedly to return a book. Have you seen the old Berkshire building on Mason Street? She asked, too casually. That empty commercial space? The one with all the windows? I looked up from my drafting table. The owners are retiring, moving to Florida. She wandered over to examine my latest mood board. They're looking for someone with vision. My pencil stilled. Joyce, just saying. She shrugged, but her eyes were sharp. It's a good location. Solid bones. Needs some love, but it's a huge commitment. My heart was already racing, though. Those windows. That corner exposure. Come look at it with me. No pressure. Just look. 2 hours later, we stood in a dusty space that smelled of old carpet and forgotten dreams. Paint peeled from the walls in elegant curves. Water stains mapped constellations on the ceiling tiles. The floor needed everything. It needs work, Joyce admitted, watching my face. I moved slowly through the space, my designer's eye already stripping away decades of neglect. The bones were there, high ceilings, clean lines, and those windows. God, those windows. Northern light poured in like a blessing. It needs vision, Joyce corrected herself. I touched a wall, and a piece of paint curled away under my fingers. Behind it, the plaster was solid. Like the building was waiting, holding its breath. I have that now, I said quietly. Joyce's smile was quick and fierce. Yes, you do. I walked the perimeter again, this time with my phone out, taking photos and measurements. My mind was already racing. Mood boards, material samples, timeline estimates. This wasn't just a space. It was a blank canvas. The rent is reasonable, Joyce mentioned, especially with your current client base. I nodded, barely hearing her. In my mind, I was already seeing it. Clean walls in warm whites, natural materials, a consultation area where clients could spread out their dreams. A design studio. My design studio. When can we talk numbers? I asked. The first week of renovation, I discovered muscles I didn't know existed. Joyce brought me Tiger Balm and knowing smiles, watching as I stripped decades of institutional beige from those beautiful walls. Remember how I said presentation was everything? Well, underneath all that bland paint, the original brick glowed like sunset. You're doing this right, Joyce said one evening, handing me a bottle of water as I sat surrounded by paint chips and material samples. Taking your time, building it properly. I nodded, too tired to speak. My hands were raw from sanding, and my clothes permanently smelled like primer. But every ache felt earned, like I was finally building something real. Then came the storage unit challenge. I'd been paying monthly fees since the divorce, keeping boxes of maybe someday items that felt too precious to dump, but too painful to unpack. Joyce offered her truck and an afternoon. Time to face those ghosts, she said. The moment we rolled up the metal door, I saw it. My parents' mahogany dining table. The one they'd gifted me during my marriage. Their way of ensuring I hosted the right kind of dinner parties. 12 feet of polished obligation, complete with the water ring from when I dared to set a glass directly on the surface. Mother nearly had an aneurysm that day. That's quite a piece, Joyce whistled, running her hand along the grain. It's coming with us, I said, surprising myself with how certain I felt. But not as a table. Joyce's eyebrows rose, but she didn't question me. Instead, she helped me measure and photograph it, then connected me with a local woodworker, a woman named Maria, who specialized in repurposing vintage pieces. We could split it, Maria suggested, sketching rapidly in her notebook. The top would make a stunning sign for your studio entrance. The legs could become wall-mounted display shelves for your material samples. I felt something unlock in my chest. Yes, exactly that. While Maria worked her magic on the table, Joyce introduced me to her network, what she called her sisterhood of second chances. There was Beth, who'd rebuilt her life after losing everything in a divorce, now running a successful printing business. Sarah, who left corporate law to open an artisanal bakery. Each woman had a story of reinvention, and none of them wanted anything from me except success. We lift as we climb, Beth told me over coffee one morning, showing me how to navigate local business permits. No games, no scorekeeping, just support. It was so different from my mother's world of competitive charity galas and strategic friendships. These women shared resources, traded services, celebrated each other's wins without qualification. When Maria finished transforming the dining table into my studio's centerpiece, they all showed up to help install it. To new beginnings, Sarah toasted with paper cups of champagne after we'd mounted the sign. The mahogany gleamed in the afternoon light, my studio's name carved deep into its heart, Donahue Design. That evening, alone in my half-finished space, I opened my laptop and checked the estate auction listings. There they were, my parents' carefully curated life, reduced to lot numbers and starting bids. The Waterford crystal that only came out for Christmas. Mother's prized silver service, the one she'd used to teach me proper tea etiquette. Even Father's collected first editions, leather-bound and perfect. My phone buzzed, a local Facebook notification. Someone had shared the auction link to our town's community page. The comments were already flowing, mostly shock, a few pointed questions about what had happened to the distinguished Donahues. I closed the laptop and looked up at my new sign, remembering all the formal dinners served on that table. All the times I'd been told to sit straighter, speak softer, be better. Now it hung above my door like a declaration. I'd taken their symbol of status and turned it into something authentic. "Your studio's going to be beautiful," Joyce said when she stopped by the next morning with coffee and croissants. She caught me staring at the sign again. Having second thoughts? No. I accepted the coffee gratefully. Just realizing something. All those years, they tried to make me fit their mold. But everything I am now, everything I'm building, it's because I finally broke it. Joyce squeezed my shoulder. "Then, let's keep building." We spent the rest of the morning painting trim and planning the layout for my material library. Every so often, my phone would buzz with another auction notification, but I let them fade. I had better things to focus on. The morning sun hit the mahogany sign just right, making the carved letters of Donahue Design glow like amber. I stood on the sidewalk, coffee growing cold in my hands, and let myself feel every emotion I'd been holding back. Remember those moments when your whole life shifts and you can actually feel it happening? This was mine. Joyce appeared beside me, resplendent in a flowing turquoise dress and her signature chunky jewelry. "Ready for this?" "I think I've been ready for years," I said, and meant it. I just didn't know it. The small crowd gathering on our block felt intimate, perfect. Beth had brought fresh scones from Sarah's bakery. Maria, my woodworker, was explaining to anyone who'd listen how we'd transformed the dining table into art. A few curious neighbors stood chatting, and, most importantly, 3 potential clients waited with portfolio folders tucked under their arms. "Before we cut this ribbon," Joyce announced, holding up the oversized scissors, "I want to say something about Camille." She turned to face me, her eyes bright. "When we first met, you were sleeping on a futon and eating ramen for dinner. But you had this fire, this absolute refusal to give up. You didn't just survive, you rebuilt. And now?" She gestured to the studio. "You're showing others how to do the same." My throat tightened. You know that feeling when someone sees you, really sees you, and reflects back all the strength you forgot you had? The ribbon fell in a clean slice, and everyone clapped. As I unlocked the front door, I caught a whiff of fresh paint and new beginnings. Inside, the space looked exactly as I'd dreamed. Clean lines, warm woods, and strategic pops of color. The former legs of my parents' dining table now held fabric samples and material swatches, transformed from symbols of obligation into tools of creation. "This is stunning," said my first potential client, running her fingers along a mood board. "It feels authentic." I smiled, remembering all the times my mother had used that word as criticism. "Your choices aren't authentic to our family's image, Camille." Now here I was, finally authentic to myself. The morning flowed into afternoon. I walked 3 different clients through design proposals. Neighbors brought welcome gifts, mostly plants and wine, which felt perfectly on brand for my new life. Joyce kept the energy flowing, introducing people and sharing stories that made me sound far more impressive than I felt. "You're not just selling design," she whispered during a quiet moment. "You're selling transformation. These people can feel it." By sunset, my feet ached and my cheeks hurt from smiling. The last guest trickled out, leaving behind business cards and promises to call. I stood in the middle of my studio, and breathed in the quiet. My phone buzzed. Another email notification. The subject line made my stomach clench. "Trust terminated." It was the automated response from my lawyer, confirming that I'd just digitally signed the final documents ending my parents' trust appeal. They'd tried one last time to wrestle control back, claiming I was emotionally unstable and unfit to manage family assets. The irony wasn't lost on me. I opened a new email and typed 2 words. "Trust terminated." Sent it to both their addresses. Simple, final, cold. "Need company?" Joyce asked from the doorway. She must have seen something in my expression. "No," I said, surprising myself. "For the first time in my life, I really don't." She nodded, understanding perfectly. "Lock up soon. Tomorrow's a work day." After she left, I walked the perimeter of my studio one last time. Every choice here was mine, from the paint colors to the furniture arrangement to the carefully curated portfolio pieces on display. No one had told me what to do or how to be, No one had demanded I meet their expectations. My phone buzzed again. Probably my parents, reacting to my email. But I didn't check it. Instead, I gathered my things, took one last look at my mahogany sign, and headed home. Tomorrow would bring new clients, new challenges, new chances to prove myself, to myself. And that was all that mattered now. The drive home felt different tonight. Maybe it was the lingering excitement from the studio opening, or maybe it was knowing I'd finally closed that last door with my parents. Whatever it was, the sunset painted everything in shades of possibility. I turned onto Maple Lane, my street now, though it still felt strange to think that. The cottage appeared through the trees, its weathered shingles and white trim glowing in the evening light. You know those moments when you catch yourself living exactly the life you needed, even if it wasn't the one you planned. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled into the narrow drive. My headlights swept across the front porch, catching the collection of terracotta pots I'd arranged last weekend. Each one held different flowers: purple coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, tiny white sweet alyssum spilling over the edges. The kind of casual, cheerful garden my mother would have called undisciplined. But the centerpiece. That was my masterpiece of quiet revenge. Their old brass mailbox, the one that had stood at the end of their manicured driveway for 20 years, now perched on my porch rail like a found art installation. I'd rescued it from the estate sale pile, much to Joyce's amusement. The elaborate script that once spelled out Donahue in gleaming metal was now deliciously rusted, barely legible under a tangle of climbing jasmine and wild morning glories. "You're either brilliant or crazy," Joyce had said when I showed her my plan. Maybe both. I grabbed my bag and climbed the porch steps, pausing to adjust one of the flower stems. The brass still caught the light in places, but nature was slowly claiming it, transforming something rigid and formal into something wild and alive. Kind of like me, I suppose. Inside, I kicked off my shoes and made my way to the kitchen. It wasn't large or fancy, no granite countertops or custom cabinets like my parents' showpiece home, but it was mine, bought with the proceeds from my first big design contract. The kettle still held enough water for one last cup of tea. While it heated, I opened the French doors to the back garden. The evening air carried the scent of grass and late summer flowers. A chorus of crickets had already started their nightly performance. I thought about my mother's perfectly silent garden, where she'd installed motion sensor lights to scare away any wildlife that dared disturb her imported roses. The kettle whistled, and I prepared my tea exactly how I liked it. No one around to judge my preference for honey over sugar, or my mismatched vintage cups. Remember how good that feels? When you finally stop hearing critical voices in your head every time you make a simple choice? I carried my cup out to the porch and settled into the old wooden rocker I'd found at a flea market. My phone sat silent in my pocket. No angry calls, no demanding texts, no guilt-laden emails, just the soft whisper of leaves in the breeze and the occasional distant car. The sky began to lighten, deep blue fading to lavender. I'd always been an early riser, even as a kid, but my parents had seen it as another fault. "Only service workers and anxiety cases wake up before 6, my mother used to say. Now I treasured these quiet moments, watching the world wake up on its own terms. The first rays of sunlight caught the morning glories twining through the old mailbox. Their purple-blue petals unfurled slowly, reaching toward the warmth. One bloom had pushed its way through a rusted hole where the E had fallen off, transforming damage into opportunity. I took a sip of tea and felt something settle in my chest, something that had been restless for years. The words came without planning, soft but certain. "Cutting ties let me bloom." A hummingbird darted past, pausing to investigate the jasmine before zipping away. The morning glories continued their slow dance toward the sun, and I sat there, watching light paint everything gold, finally understanding what peace felt like. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.